The more I looked at this issue with what Oliver said, John Oliver, the HBO show, we covered this a couple of videos ago, a couple days ago, 16th, where he's trying to do a hit piece on Maduro, the bidding, of course, of the mainstream media and the powers that control them. But in doing so, I highlighted in this video two or three occasions where he actually shows things that contradict the story. Now, in this particular one, the one I use at the end as kind of the big reveal, they talk about this issue where the government of Venezuela was giving away rabbits to use for homesteading, to raise and use for meat. The problem was that people were keeping them as pets and using them as, just pets for their kids. And it was such a big problem that a representative of the U.S. government, listen to me, of the Venezuelan government, had to go on TV and say, look, don't do this. This is not why we're doing this. And let me play this quick snippet for you, and then I'll reveal for you the other 3 points that this shows clearly that they are manipulating the story.
And even when the Maduro government has tried to help, it's done it in a truly ham-fisted way. For instance, Maduro has proposed a so-called rabbits plan, basically a program to encourage Venezuelans to breed and eat bunnies. But when people started putting bows on them and keeping them as pets instead, his administration gave a pretty callous correction.
A rabbit is not a pet. It's 2.5 kilos of meat that is high in protein with no cholesterol.
Okay, high in protein, no cholesterol. Now, first of all, we see a couple people here that don't look like they've missed too many meals. Second of all, if they had a problem with people not eating them, that of course then means that the people who were getting the rabbits weren't in a position where they were starving. But it also reveals something else, 3 other points. Not only did they keep the rabbits as pets, they had enough extra expendable income to feed them, to probably get them a cage, and even, as was admitted here by John Oliver, putting bows on them. Now, here's the point that absolutely hit me like a ton of bricks. Not only was that the case, did they have the extra expendable income, they didn't know anybody who was hungry. Think about this. If you even knew somebody who was hungry, who could have used that rabbit to do this or eaten the rabbit itself, wouldn't you think you would have either given them the rabbit or sold it to them if you wanted to make some extra money? Not only that, they didn't know enough people, or were not aware of enough people, that even if they didn't need the rabbits themselves, keeping them, breeding them, raising them, and then selling them for meat, or giving them out as meat, they didn't see enough demand to make it worth their while when they were getting the rabbits for free. It was such a big a problem that the government of Venezuela had to go on the TV and say, you need to be homesteading and farmsteading with these rabbits. But there were so many people that were like, oh, it's a cute bunny, we'll keep it and we'll feed it. Those people didn't even know people that were starving, or didn't even think there would be a big enough demand from people who were starving that it would have made it a profitable business for them. Think about that. If you were in that position here, that's exactly what you do. Even if you weren't starving, what would you do? You'd either give it, or you'd sell it, or you'd start a business. You see, and if you don't think that it's a coordinated effort, let me show you something, okay? Here's a Google search of mine. Maduro-Colombian border exclusive petrozone. Okay? Now, I knew there was an article out there that had all of those words in it. Okay? And I searched through here, and the article, nothing. There's one here about Maduro and the Petro. But he created an exclusive petrozone on the border just with Colombia in one particular state, the Chachiro state. And I searched through page after page after page, and I could not find this article. So what did I have to do? I had to specifically go to Telesur, and if you think I'm kidding, here's the article. President Maduro will create an economic zone of the petro on the border with Colombia. And here's the published date, 14 May 2018. A Google search won't have it show up. I had to physically go to where I had to remember in my mind where it was, and then go to the website and dig it up. It's Telesur. But look at all the search terms. Maduro, zone, petro, Colombia, border. What do I do over here? Maduro, Colombia, border, petro zone, exclusive petro zone. The only word there that was different was exclusive. And it's in the article. Or they call it here a special use economic zone, I guess. But the point being, you should think 5 search terms would get you there. They're burying the story. Because this is what's happening. You see, they're not creating this zone with Brazil. They're only creating it with Colombia. Because what I told you about what Colombia is doing to them with these paramilitaries is true. It's absolutely true. Because here's the thing. Here's the argument that everybody says that he's a poor economic manager, and that they were a one-trick pony, and it was because of oil crashing, and oil just magically crashes all by itself all the time. Here's the 2008 financial crisis. This is a chart. This is the history of inflation in Venezuela. We've used this before. This big dot right here, this is where, in 1989, this is where the Venezuelan president announced he was going to start to charge for gasoline. This was a different issue that had to do with shortages, and also what was happening in other countries around there. This red line, this is Chavez. This is when the problem started. Now, I want you to look at these dates, 2012, 13, 14, and 15. Now, this is, as soon as it pops up, Investopedia. They're not pro one way or the other in this article. It talks about the 4 reasons why the price of crude oil dropped. Okay, now this isn't something where they're trying to, prop up Maduro or they're pro-socialist. They're just talking about the facts. Now, it talks about the cause of the downturn in the price of a barrel of oil. Strong U.S. dollar, OPEC oversupply, declining demand. The strong U.S. dollar had to do with China at that time. China is a currency manipulator. The current leader said as soon as he took office he was going to label them a currency manipulator, and then backed out of it. What they do is that when you would think having a strong currency is a great thing, but they have this thing called Dutch disease that happens to these countries that export oil. Their economies boom so fast that their currencies become very, very, very overvalued. And it makes their exports almost impossible, because when your currency is worth more than the place that you're selling stuff to, it's going to make it way too expensive. So what China does is China goes out and it deflates the value of its own currency artificially to create more competitive markets for its products on foreign shelves. So what they were doing here is they were buying up the dollar and causing the price of the dollar to go sky high. But what this does is it causes commodity prices to go down, meaning that you need fewer dollars to buy more commodities. This is bad for exporters of things like, especially like oil and other commodities, because they don't get as much money for the things that they are selling. And it talks about this here. Strong U.S. dollar has been the main driver for the price decline of crude oil. Now this is 2014, when all this fell apart for them. The dollar is at a 12-year high against the euro. Okay, and a reduction in oil prices. This puts the market under a lot of pressure because when the value of the dollar is strong, the value of commodities fall. Global commodity prices are usually in dollars and fall when the US dollar is strong. This is the other thing. With oil, the petrodollar, people don't understand this. Every country in the world has to convert their currency into dollars to buy oil. And when the dollar is powerful, that basically is like theft. Now, here's the thing nobody talks about. OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, another leading factor in the sharp drop of crude oil price 2014. Cartel of oil producers is unwilling to stabilize the oil markets. Prices of OPEC's benchmark crude oil have fallen 50%. Now, this is 2014. Since the organization decided against cutting production at a 2014 meeting in Vienna. This is the year before the U.S. ban on exports, oil exports, expired. So the U.S. was setting this up. Of the participating countries in OPEC, Iran, Venezuela, and Algeria have wanted to cut production to firm up prices. So this wasn't economic mismanagement by Venezuela. The U.S. bullied Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and other Gulf allies into doing this. Along with the strong dollar, it cratered the Venezuelan economy artificially. Oversupply of crude oil. Crude futures declined in late September 2015. Look, 2015. That's when the inflation rate went nuts. Not back here, not when socialism was in play over here. Here, this is when it went crazy. Now listen to this. If you don't think the U.S. was doing it on purpose, listen to the facts. Unrelated to futures, oil inventories have risen more than expected. The Energy Information Administration reported that on September 30, 2015, that U.S. commercial crude oil inventories rose by 4.5 million barrels from the previous week. At almost 500 million barrels, U.S. crude oil inventories are at the highest level in at least 80 years. The U.S., with its allies, artificially destroyed the price of oil to take down Venezuela. And this is what I was talking about before, China's devaluation of the currency. This is a 2014 article from Investopedia. I will give you the link and you can read it for yourself. And then this Iran nuclear deal. What this did is this allowed the Iranians to start exporting, putting even more oil onto the market. What happened in Venezuela wasn't the cause of more management. It wasn't the cause of because they just wanted to get in bed with the Chinese or the Russians. The U.S. criminalized U.S. banks helping out Venezuela. And for 3 years, they systematically created an economic war against this country. And this is not what they're telling you is the case. And this Petro is his way of trying to wean his country off of the effects of the petrodollar. Pure and simple, and even when the left tries to do the bidding of their masters, they still can't hide the truth. And like I said, I'll put these links out there. You can read them for yourself. And this is why I said after the elections, this coming Sunday, everything's going to change. Because after that, the U.S. is going to take the gloves off because they don't like being defied. And it's going to get ugly. So, like, share, subscribe.